Hello, everyone. This is BizChicks TV. This is the place where you can find tips and tools to help you do business better. We're here to help you run a profitable business that's fun to run and to take the hassle out of your hustle. And
Yep.
today I'm here with Coach Caren, all the way from Toronto, Canada. Oh, our money mindset coach is in the house. So we want you to sit back, relax, but don't get too relaxed. Make sure you got your pencil and paper because you need to take some notes if you're like me. I need to know more about how to get my personal and my business money together. All right, so Coach Caren, I just want to give a shout out before you start to my partner, Miss Francine Gregory, real estate entrepreneur and tech diva. Miss Francine Gregory, and I'm Tirolina from California Cover Ups. So, with that, we're going to get started, guys, and I hope you're in the right position here. Heads up, pencils up, let's get ready. Hey, what you got for us today, Coach?
Oh, so today, and guys, if you're following through all this month, we're talking about profits and all that wonderful stuff. And you guys know I like to go back a little bit and just refer back. We started off this month talking about branding and what it truly is in the profit sense. And then last week, we talked about the meaning of profits. This week, we're touching on the revenue. And this is so important because sometimes people mix up revenue with profits or gains and what have you. So this week we're
Okay.
talking revenue.
Oh, well, then I need clarification.
So I'm going to
There's a
talk a little bit
difference?
about, I'm going to give the meaning of it so that we understand the difference.
Okay.
So is revenue the same as profit? Let me answer that right away. Nope.
Okay.
And so let's talk about it. Revenue, also known as sales, does not deduct any cost or expenses
Oh,
associated with operating the business. Profits are the amount of income that remains. All right. So let me repeat that.
okay.
Let me repeat that. I'm reading it. I took the meaning straight off. I can give you my own letter, but I wanted to give you exactly what it says. Revenue, also known as sales. So when somebody talks about the revenue, they're really talking about their sales. How much
Gotcha.
sales came in, how much money they make out of the sales, and you got to pay attention. So I'm going to give an example and I'm going to read the rest. When we hear somebody said, I make a 6-figure month, you really have to understand that lots of time they're talking about their revenue. That's not a profit. That's not the money they're taking home. That's none of that. Somebody can make $1 million this month and they only take home 100,000 for themselves.
Mhm.
Life happens depending on what they're doing, how heavy they're advertising, who their team is, what happens with their team, how important their team, the role that the team members play will dictate how much you pay that team member. So which means your profit goes down. So it does not deduct any cost of expenses, which labor's expenses, labor costs and all that wonderful other stuff associated with operating the business operation costs, all those expenses is comes is not part of your revenue. That's why people get mixed up sometimes, right? Profits are the amount of income that remains. So when you finish paying out all of that, that's when you get profit. And that's why you
Okay.
hear all the time, we'll say, know your numbers. We'll always say, know your numbers because we want you to understand the difference. We really want you to get it.
Okay. And you know what? I just never thought to make a different um, spreadsheet for revenue versus
Profits.
profit.
Yeah. 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 And I'm working on some printables that I want to start getting people actively looking at before I fully come out with my own stuff, because I'm working on it's my stuff, but I mean, like, to put it in a package, but because to
Yes.
people to get the idea and the feel of it, it's not a budget, but it's similar in terms of how you set things up so you can understand it. So, like, for instance, and I just do this for myself, I do this for clients. I'm like, this is something that I see that it's useful for them. And then somebody had booked some time with me and he says, listen, I'm the kind of guy, and he's a coach too. He says, you talk about this stuff, and the reason I'm booking this time with you is because I was realizing I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want simple forms. So you give it to me, you explain what I'm supposed to do, and all of a sudden, kind of got money in my pocket. Whereas before, I didn't know where things were going.
Because We know we had sales,
Yes.
but we don't know if we made a profit
Hmm.
because we're tracking sales versus tracking profit.
Yes.
So we need to know what is the number for that item after we take out the expenses.
Exactly.
So when the
Exactly.
item is sold,
Yeah.
that's really what the profit was.
Yes. Yes. We have to know this.
So is that why we need to know the retail price versus the wholesale price
Yes.
so that we can subtract the wholesale from the retail?
Yes. We need to know that. We need
And
to know. Okay, go
when
ahead. You
we
ask me, and then I'll tell you something because I did
and
a bit
when
of
we do
calculation.
that, when we subtract the wholesale from the retail price, that price is basically profit, equals
Yes.
profit.
Yes. Basically,
Okay,
in a
so see,
simple
'cause
manner.
I have to simplify this stuff.
Yes, in a simple manner, it is. It is. And so, if it's a, so I want to say this to clarify. If you are a product base, and what Terry just said is very simple and straightforward, here's when it get a bit complicated because it's not simply just taking this away from that. There's these other costs that has to be
Mm.
accounted for. If it's not accounted for, eventually your business goes away. Now Terry's retired, so she's not depending on this. If this is your main income, you got to be more. You got to pay more attention. You got to be more strategic. Why can't
Strategic,
I spell the word?
strategic.
Strategic with this, and I
Hmm.
mean you have to know admin costs. You've got to know.
Hi, Yolanda.
Hi, Yolanda. Product costs.
She has a question. She says, "Are we talking wholesale price or versus or cost?" And I'm not sure. Yolanda, can you be a little more specific?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can address that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So we have to know all of this. I remember years ago, somebody wanted to open a catering company, and we were both in business class together. But the cost was the can I say? Let me not talk bad about the people, but I was thinking, boy, do what they're teaching it's so watered down. So I took the woman aside and I said to her, "How much money are you investing in this business that you want to start?" And she explained to me, and we talked about it. And I realized she was working at a loss.
Mm.
But the person who did most of the baking and most of the stuff didn't understand money. So she was partnered with somebody who didn't understand money, and her herself didn't understand money. And
Mm.
they, she came and she said, I remember one time we had 150 guests. Could you believe it? And she explained how much money they made and what have you. And I said to her, I'm doing a quick calculation in my head. You couldn't make a lot of money. And she says, Karen, when did you calculate? I said, you're talking and I'm calculating. That's just how my brain works. I'm pretty good with, I can multiply big numbers like crazy in my head. So I just mentally multiply them. And I said to her, you didn't make any money. She goes, no
Mhm.
wonder I was so upset with myself. I'm tired. I got my kids. I'm like, where are money? Where people didn't pay us. No, they paid you. But you didn't understand calculation. You didn't understand material. You didn't understand expense. You didn't understand that labor expense. You didn't understand. So the people that helped, they paid
Mm.
them. They paid back the loan for the material they bought. But to pay themselves, they couldn't, which means they didn't make a profit. And they had no more money to put back into the business. The
Mm.
business
Mhm.
flopped in less than 2 months. Let me tell you.
Wow. So I think what Yolanda's trying to say to us is, are we talking about taking the wholesale price versus what it really costs us, which is what you were talking about? We have these additional
Hmm.
expenses like light, space, team members, things you were talking about that may be included in the overhead. So basically, we're talking about overhead versus the retail price.
We have to.
Equals
We have to
profit.
consider. If we don't consider all those things, we can't get to a retail price. You see, the retailers know this already. So everything that they buy with the intention, knowing their base cost. It's like a budget. Okay, budget has fixed costs and flexible costs. So
Mhm.
if you're going to run a store, you have to know what a beginning capital is and what it costs to run the store without product in the store, just the top.
Yes.
And when you add product to that top number, you have to understand that you have to be able to cover that with the retail pricing.
Hmm.
You have
And
to.
and then you would do that by how much space that item is taking up in
Mm-hmm.
the on the floor.
Right.
Gotcha.
It's way more in depth that I am going into today.
Yeah, we don't want to
Yeah.
go down that. We don't want to go down that
No,
because
no,
I
no, no.
know that they set up, what do you call the model stores, and then they
Mm-hmm.
space it out, and then they price
Yes.
out the space.
Yes.
Da, da, da.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Yes. A whole bunch of stuff they go into.
Mhm.
When you go to, let's give a simple example. If your church had stuff like you guys do, or you go to a place that is allowing vendors to be, one
Uh-huh.
of the things the prosperous vendors or the seasoned vendors understand this. You want to take, I don't care how small a place you're in, you want to take tape and you want to put it down, and you want to really set up your table and display your items, like for example, and you want to take pictures and see how you could best position yourself, and then you want to practice yourself how you're going to sell, because your goal is to really make your revenue high, because it's not your profits, it's just the
Mhm.
money you're going to sell, and you got to treat it like a business. And this is like a musician. I want to say like a musician. I had a cousin as a musician, had a lot of musicians in my family, and those guys would practice. And I remember me and my little cousin saying, but you're not playing anywhere, why you keep blowing the whatever or the other one to play together? Those guys practice all the time.
Mhm.
Business owners, a lot of us do not spend practicing time. We think it's wasted time, but it's so important. So when those guys get a gig, most gigs, they get booked at the gig for more gigs because they're so good, because they've been practicing. I think that's the best way of putting it over, small businesses, right? So revenue is not the same as profits. And as I said, let's investigate why or why not. Because revenue is the top. It's the enchilada. It's the person who said, I make $10,000 this month. It's the person who said, I had a $20,000 month. I had a six-figure month. But your job, you don't have to ask them, but you got to start thinking in your mind, are they six figures earners, or they're six figures revenue earners, which means it's the revenue. It's money they made, but it's not their money. They don't have it. You understand? And so a lot of time people say, well, how you used to make all the money you're broke? Well, because if they didn't know the numbers, and this is not everybody, just remember, this is just a portion of people who got excited, made a lot of money on an item because of their style or what have you, but the business is not profitable. The business is not profitable. And this is why you also would hear business is not profitable the first 1 to 5 years, but that's so old school that I rarely prefer people to be profitable in their first year. That's what I teach. That's what I coach.
Yeah. And I believe that because that was my experience. I mean, I was profitable basically from day one. Um, but then, like you said, I didn't have a lot of overhead. Most of my business was over the internet. So it really slimmed down overhead. And
Exactly.
my building and my things were covered. Now, what I
Mhm.
didn't do was figure out what am I paying for my internet and different things because I was already using the internet. So I don't know.
So even though you're already using it, you'll do a percentage. Like for
Uh,
example, you'll do a percentage. It won't be the whole thing, right?
mhm.
When I first started doing business in this basement here in my home, when you file your tax, they'll ask you about
Yeah.
your business space. And I've decided this is X, Y, and Z I'm going to pay. So let's say I decided I was going to pay $650 a month for rent space here. That goes into the utilities and all. That's after I take the percentage of it and come up with a number. So it makes sense when I'm filing that I'm paying for space. And even though it's coming out in that form. And people get excited about doing that for tax time, but you really should get excited when you're planning out your business and what things are going to cost, especially if you intend to grow. And it doesn't matter if you're going to still grow from home, you
Okay.
still want to understand how much it costs. So if eventually you wanted to venture outside, you don't have a sticker shock, you're not freaking out. It is not hard to save if your business is doing well, 650, and I'm just giving you a number,
Mhm.
$650 a month for rent. So if you save that for a year, that's 612s, right? 7,200 that you've saved. 650. So let's say 650, 50 by 12 is 600. So $7,800 you've saved in rent. So if you were deciding and you did that for like 3 or 5 years, you've got a nice cushion if you decide to go and rent space. You've got, you've been setting this up to happen. And if you're thinking smart, and if you're going to have it for 3 to 5 years, you're going to want to put it somewhere to make a little bit of interest also, out there for a few years. So no, you have money and you're not feeling so strapped. One of the things, and this is a mindset thing here, one of the things is when you don't get profit in the first year, you're human. You start feeling like a failure. You feel like you don't know what you're doing. You feel discouraged. You're still passionate about your stuff, but it gets harder. And when I say it gets harder, it doesn't mean that you don't want to get up in the morning and do it anymore. What happens is it gets harder, but you don't notice it's getting harder yet because it's so slight. So you don't start seeing that it's getting harder for you. So it gets harder. And I thought when people talk about productivity, I said the first thing drops is your productivity. You don't want to get up and pounce out of bed as you used to. And you say, well, it's because I was up late. And then you say it's because I had a drink. Or you'll say it's because somebody says this to me. But it's really, your brain is starting to see no money coming in. And it's wanting what's going on. Because you've told it that I'm going into business. If you told nobody, you say to yourself, I'm going into business, I'm going to make some money. Mm-hmm. And you told you. And then it's not happening. What happens when we disappoint ourselves? We are annoyed in different ways. It comes out differently, but we are.
And we tend to lose energy.
Yeah. And that's where it's so small and minute that sometimes you don't realize that you're really annoyed that you are not doing what you say you're going to do. So your job is to really figure this out before. And if you have a hustle, most people have a hustle, don't like to hear this because they're like, I just want to sell my stuff. And I hear ya, but sell your stuff, but with the eyes out, knowing what you have to do and what you need to do. Mm-hmm. I was talking to somebody about goal setting, and we were talking about how much they needed to charge the client per month. And this was, it was between charging $500 for the specific service and $750. And I wanted them to know that they're going to get some clients at $5 and they're going to get some clients at $750. And so we had to do both scenarios. And the whole $750 wasn't hers. And she was like, what do you mean, Caren? The whole $750 is not mine.
Well, we have bills to pay. It's just like when you get any other source of income.
Right? I'm like, taxes got to come out of that. I'm like, excuse me. I said, and you're gonna have some things to pay, because if you don't set it up this way, and we wanted to do a spreadsheet. If you don't set it up this way, when you have those bills to be paid, you're gonna have to scramble to get the money. And I don't want you to do that. So we set up the scenario in the revenue focus in terms of how many clients she needs per month to service, how she's going to go about getting those clients, what's the activities that has to go on. And so she knows this is the revenue that she's bringing in, but that's not her profit. So we had to go down the stream talking about if she bring in 3 clients versus 5 clients for the first month, how much that's going to be once tax is out, what it's going to look like. So I decided to do a little bit of number here so I can talk about it today, what she's going to end up making when we take taxes out, what's going to leave, and what is her bottom line. So her bottom line is she wanted to make $3,000 a month, period, in her hand. And because that was the number we were going for, we knew right away that she couldn't just serve 3 clients as she thought. If she wanted to, she got to up the price to serve 3 clients. Rather, she need to look at 6 or 7 clients. 6 clients were ideal. But the reason I wanted her to look at 7 clients, because we don't know if we're going to lose a client or 2. So we want to have that buffer, right? We want to have that. Yes. Yeah, we want to have that cushion. And great if we had the 7 clients, but we wanted to have it. So once we worked everything out and we were at a point and she recognized that she was only going to bring in roughly about $1,900. She wasn't too happy, but it gave her a clear picture so that she could have she's gone away, so she's going to come back and we're going to see where she needs to be. Because we're dealing with the real stuff, like the mindset stuff we dealt with. We're doing all the stuff together there. But this is the part sometimes that Business owners don't want to take the time to look after, but
Yes.
it's so important to look after. Now, when it first hit you, when you coach with me, you're going to first hit you, you're going to like, I don't want to do that, Karen. Like, I don't want to deal with that. But that is the important part.
Excuse me. Mm-hmm.
Your passion, everything you're doing is great. But if you do all of that, but you don't have any money to end, just what I spoke on before, being depleted and feeling, out of whack, it's going to hit you worse than this scenario that we're talking about. Because once we knew that she's going to make $1,912.50 to boot, because everything was down to the point,
Yes.
we're like, how could we turn that into more? And now our job is to do so. And we're working on that, getting that up to where she needs to be, and then above. So even though she needs $3,000 a month, we want to get it to $5,000 a month. That's where we want to have it. We want to have this play. We want to take away financial worry and stress. So we want to get it to 5. So our job is to sit down and understand how she needs to serve, how she needs to go about getting clients in, how to spend her time wisely, because that's the big important part. And then how, when she get them, how she's going to serve them. And what I look like is setting up a spreadsheet, talking about how many clients she needs to get, all the different things she's going to do for the client, the timeline, how the life of the client in her situation. She might have a client for 3 months, but she might have a client for a year or 3 years. The span of her clients is 3 to 7 years. So she's in a good spot in the field that she's in, but she got to nurture them, and she still got to do these other things. And eventually, also, when she get the number up, she can hire an assistant. So the tedious work that now we have turned into a system, she's no longer having to do that. And she could truly afford an assistant, not pretend she can afford an assistant.
I love that. A pretend assistant. Okay.
Sorry, guys, but I bring it real.
Hey, I mean, seriously, how we have these fictional assistants that we're
Right?
going to get someday.
So you have to really understand revenue and how it's coming in, what's happening, what's going on. I was listening to TikTok yesterday, and the lady was saying she teaches social media management to students. She got students, and people always asking her how much she take a class with her and what have you. And in my head, and I'd said it, and she'd pinned my comment. I'm like, if you got to ask her, you really is not ready yet to work with her. When people are not telling you to give me a lot of information, they have made some money, so they're not worrying with you because they know what's going to happen. and it took her a minute or two, but I think we've been back and forth for a while now. Yesterday, she did a TikTok talking about making her base is $10,000 a month. And some people, you can tell from what they typed, they were cringing. And the ones who were brave enough were saying, well, couldn't we just start at $300 a month? And she says, you could, but I prefer to start at $1,000 a month. And the girl is like, well, sometimes, you got to start without experience with that small amount of money. I'm bringing this to the table because I want to tell you why she's right and why it's hard to start low and move up high. If you decide to be the kind of person who charge a little bit of money, then understand that's where your capacity is, and it's okay. Do not get annoyed, though, because the people who's paying you this amount of money will give you this amount of work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They don't know any better. Their capacity also is the thing that they should pay this to get that. Those are the people who went to the dollar store, and the dollar store, at least in Canada, is no longer a dollar. It's $1.25, $4, $10.
Didn't they change that?
And they understood what needed to happen, so they did it. And so when I first did I used to do social media management, and I remember I charged $200, and that was years ago. Oh my God, I don't know, over 10, 12 years ago. And when I had my first client, and I told her what she needs to get, the hardest part was her getting the stuff to me. And I had a re-meeting a couple of times, and I said to her, you know what? If you want me to do everything, I could, but here would be your cost. And we had to part ways because I could not wait till ever she brings the stuff, because if you're going to be on social media, I have to be able to produce your content, your design. I have to do all those things. And I know she didn't know, and so I had to steady inform her. But what I recognize, if you get somebody who's paying you good money, they also expect results, so they're going to get to you the things you need to get. That's just the way it is. I'm not saying everybody, but the majority of people, if they're going to pay you thousands of dollars, even if they're paying you $1,000 a month to look after their social media, they're going to get your stuff to you because they're the people who want results. If you say to them, I'm going to post, I don't know, so many posts per day for the month for this 30 days. Here's what I expect you to get. Here's the engagement. Here is the people going to do what I have. We're not in control of their stuff, but at least we're going to guide them in terms
some direction. Some direction.
That's really what we're giving it. We're not saying you're going to make sales. If you get somebody who says, I'm going to help you make $1,000, that's not what they're going to help you do. They're going to help you get the people to notice you, to know you're there, so that you, in turn, as the business person, will engage with them and nurture them to make the sale.
So they're basically building your audience.
Yes, that's what they're doing. Unless they're a social media salesperson, then they're also closing. Now, that's bigger money. And they themselves probably have a team who do certain sections for you. That's an agency kind of thing. So you have to know who you're hiring and why you're hiring the people. So every time I hear somebody complain how expensive they are, I'm like, the kind of work they do, the research is crazy so that you can be your best self. You're paying them so you don't do the tedious work, because it's tedious work. It's not as glamorous as you might think. It's a lot of behind the scenes that nobody sees. You're going through to make sure that your client is getting the best for their specific audience, for the people they're serving and what have you. It's a little step away, but it's really talking about revenue still and really making you understand how revenue works. Revenue is sales. Revenue is bringing in the money. Revenue is not profit.
And I learned that today.
Cheers.
Revenue is what's in the till at the end of the day. Versus, what do we have after we take out all of the expenses?
Yes, exactly. Totally different.
Thank you so much for making that plain. Do you know what I'm saying? Because, like you said, it can be a very deep subject.
Yes.
Start talking about base costs and different things. But this way, I thoroughly understand it.
Yes. Because we want to get that understanding clear. Going any deeper with not understanding the base is hard.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And then people start talking over our heads. Well, I want you to know that Maureen was in today, Yolanda was in today, and we just want to give them a shout out over here.
Hi, guys.
And make sure that they know that we know that they're in the house and we appreciate them. And all of you guys who will be watching on the replay. So, Coach Caren, we're going down this road about revenue and profits. Where are we going next week?
So next week we're talking about, we're on the 22nd. Yeah. Next week we're talking about why a business must make profits. We're really getting into, we're going to be talking about positive cash flow a little bit. We'll be talking about why profits are our lifeblood, and that sort of thing. We really need to, this month we're really horning in on profits. And then the end of the month we're talking about, how can I make a profit in my small business and truly get it. We want these topics to be discussed. We want people to be discouraged. We don't want you to see people, printing a lot of labels.
We don't want them to be discouraged.
No, printing a lot of labels, selling a lot of things. You're like, well, my business is not doing that. My business is not getting there yet. Well, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know how many time they're putting. You don't even know if they're profitable. But the highlights is what you see. The grind is what you don't see. And making a sale, before you understand sales well, it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and try and pretend to you that it's easy. Sales, learning sales, and then putting in the work to be a really good salesperson. It's a learned skill like everything else. You can't be disappointed when you reach out to people. I know me myself, online world humbled me, because if I'm in person, I can talk to you and sell you anything. The online world, you're touching people several times before they might buy, or they might not even see your message till long after you wanted them to see it. So that's why social media is so good. When Terry's on here, she's always talking about being seen, being out there, showing yourself, making sure people know you're there. So if you're prevalent in their mind, if they wanted to buy something,
you're at top of top of the
Yes, they're gonna go buy
mind.
it. So it's not only reaching out to them for the sale, it's always talking, always being there. Excuse me. And not only a product. I mean, for me, I talk about my food, I dance, I show my family, I talk about the nonsense that's happening, whatever it is that make me the person. I initially used to want to hide that part of me, and then I
Yeah.
recognize, money is not easy to talk about, and that's my genre. So I mix it up with everything else because that is who I am, and to leave that out would be not being my true authentic self. So
Yes, and we are seeking you out because you are here to help us run a profitable business that's
that's
funded.
Montserrat. Beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful.
and take the hassle out of our hustle.
Yes,
So, Coach, I thank you so much
you're
for
welcome.
helping us to understand that revenue is not the same thing as profit,
Mhm.
and that we need to understand both so that
Yes,
we can run a profitable business. Oh
exactly.
my goodness, and consider everything that comes in does not go in our wallet.
No,
All right.
and let me put up my hand before I go and say I've done that.
Been there, done that, especially with the lemonade stand, okay? Everything, because Bobby paid for all the ingredients, right? And the cups and everything, but we want to keep
Right?
all the profit, right? Okay, guys, we want to thank you so much for tuning in. And we want to remind you that tomorrow we'll be here with Robin Shimizu and friends for Happy Healthy Habits with Robin Shimizu. But we want to thank Coach Caren. She always just makes everything so plain. Thank you, Coach. Oh
You're
my
welcome.
goodness, guys! I hope you had your pencils out. You saw me writing. So when I look over here, that means I'm writing something down. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate you.
You're welcome.
And we thank you for your time. Guys, I'm telling you, mm, things will make you go, because over here at BizChicks, we don't like convoluted crap. We like
No,
to make
no.
sure that it's plain so that
Yes.
you can go forward and use those
Yes.
things in your life.
Yes. It's so important. Anytime
Yeah.
I attend something and people are just talking around it in circle, just tell us. Like, just tell us. We can just tell us.
You know what I mean? Don't hold me hostage. Just tell me what you got to say. Then
Yeah.
tell me what you told me. Okay, guys, we love you and we'll see you tomorrow. Remember, go to the front of
Run
your
up your
own
own
line.
line.
Have a great day. Bye bye.